the Jeff Meacham Network's Multiverse of Media. For over 15 years, the recognized symbol of excellence and the standard bearer in coverage of sports and entertainment. The following views are strictly the views of JHebert and do not represent anybody that works with the Jeff Meacham Network Multiverse of Media or is a part of the Jeff Meacham Network Multiverse of Media.
Straight from JHebert Studios, James covers the good, the bad, and the ugly, and gives his perspective on things. Now here is your host, JHebert.
Are you confused? Yes, ladies and gentlemen, my current backdrop has changed. I'm not at my usual setup. I actually have brought my entire big-ass PC over to my mother's house because they are currently away. So I have to babysit the elderly kitty cat named George. You have seen him on past watch-alongs and past shows I've done. So hence, this is the backdrop, at least for the next 2 episodes of the podcast. Possibly for an open mic night, depending on how that goes. But we'll see if we even get to that point. I'm supposed to be here until Saturday. I have no idea what I'm doing. As far as that goes, I very well, if I am doing open mic night, might be doing it down in the confines of my basement at this house. But things are a little bit weird right now, so that's just kind of how it is right now. But I just kind of wanted to, say that first before I, say anything else, really, because this podcast is going to be a difficult one for me, just because of how young the man was and how much he had left to give to the world. I mean, I know he wasn't exactly young, but he was young enough to where I'm like, holy shit. We're going to be covering, obviously, the passing of Akira Toriyama and the legacy he has left the world. And I'm not even going to lie to you. I have a little clip of a video I'm going to show, but I'll get to that in a minute. But when I originally had thought about doing this podcast, I really didn't know how I was going to be able to do that. And I mean that because what can you say about a guy who has had not only impact on the anime scene, but he has had impact on video games like Dragon's Quest. That's had influences on a whole host of media, and all the way to the governments of the world had recognized him as a symbol of peace. And just from doing what he loves, and that was create Dragon Ball and, other things, outside of Dragon Ball. Basically kickstarting the whole golden years of Shonen Jump with his first anime. I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head, but even before Dragon Ball, he did a bunch of stuff anime-wise for so long. And, you know, it was so hard to kind of put into perspective the impact he had on not only me, but the world. Because if you have heard of anime, you know what Dragon Ball Z is. You know Goku, you know Vegeta, you know Piccolo, you know these characters. Some of the most iconic characters in the history of the series were created and drafted by Akira Toriyama. And their legacies live on to this day because of the impact he's had on not only the hardcore fan base, but even the casualist of Dragon Ball fans. And I think that's the approach that I'm going to be coming at this, because I did not get into Dragon Ball in any capacity in the traditional way whatsoever. We'll get into how I got into it, but before I even do that, I'm going to play a video clip here from a guy named from a YouTube channel named Mother's Basement. Go subscribe to him. I'm hoping this doesn't get taken down because it does show a lot of Dragon Ball footage. I'm gonna probably have to make 2 different clips of this, but we're gonna be playing this because I think this alone sums up the life in a very concise way and the impact that Akira Toriyama had on the world.
緊張しますね。テレビは恥ずかしいですね。
Every artist wishes they could one day make something as impactful as Dragon Ball. Akira Toriyama's martial arts magnum opus defined a genre, influenced several entire generations, and created a truly iconic cast of characters who will endure in popular culture for decades to come. With a style that 4 decades later is still the first thing that comes to mind when most people hear anime. Few artists would have the...
A little history too, because I'm not like completely ignorant to this fact, but this style of anime, or at least animation of anime, it first was popularized by Fist of the North Star, Kenshiro. You know, that was the first string of that style of anime. Akira Toriyama took that style and fucking made it. Like, perfected it. And I just wanted to add that tidbit there, just in case nobody knows the history of that. That it's not necessarily Akira's style. He just kind of took it and ran with the fucking ball with for the end zone into the touchdown, you know?
Audacity to even dream of doing that twice. But Toriyama was built different. He didn't dream. He did. Before he even drew his first rough sketches of Son Goku, he was already one of the most successful mangaka in history, thanks to Dr. Slump, an uproarious comedy about a sardonic super robot girl and her dirtbag dad that, alongside Rumiko Takahashi's Urusei Yatsura, redefined what gag manga could be and helped cement their place as the dominant species of shonen manga. A title that Arare's defective descendant Roboco still defends valiantly to this day. Not content to simply reshape a single medium twice, though, Toriyama also helped Yuji Horii invent the JRPG with Dragon Quest just 2 years after launching Dragon Ball, and he's kept quietly working on video games ever since, including one that's considered by many to be the greatest JRPG of all time. In fact, he just got done supervising a very cool-looking open-world adaptation of his manga Sandland that's due out next month. Because even at 68, even with more you money than 50 of me would know what to do with, even as his health was apparently failing behind the scenes, Toriyama still had so much left to give the world.
Right there is, like, when I first heard this, and I've watched this whole video, by the way. Go out of your way to see this after you watch my podcast. I'm not even going to play the full video. I'm just playing the first beginning of this. But, I knew he did Dragon's Quest. I didn't know how he essentially helped develop the engine that Dragon's Quest would have became. And the fact that he was still working on projects to this day, I mean, right up until his passing, is like, that is a man who was dedicated to his art, his craft, and I think as time went on, just trying to make people happy as much as possible. And that I think when you have that type of energy, that spreads a lot. And I mean, that spreads far and wide.
Forget artists. Few human beings, period, across all of history, have made an impact like Akira Toriyama. Looked on as a god among men, even by other gods of manga, like the late, great Kazuki Takahashi. You know how you'd probably collapse into a gibbering mess of spaghetti if you ever met the creator of Naruto or One Piece? That's how they felt when they met him. Bro was literally eulogized by the government of China. Not like Chairman Xi made a tweet about how he personally really loved the manga. I mean, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs made an official statement on his passing. They're not the only government either, and this isn't even the first time he's been the subject of international diplomacy.
In Mexico, there was government-sponsored public watch parties for the final episodes of Dragon Ball Super. They became so popular, Japan had to send a formal diplomatic notice commanding them to stop, which they didn't. Holy shit. Wow. That's, you know your anime is powerful. You know your series of Dragon Ball is powerful when it's getting that much traction in Mexico, of all places. But yeah, that's the thing. And then China to make a statement. Like, he was essentially... I hear this and I'm like, how the fuck does this guy not have a Nobel Peace Prize? Seriously, how can you... I mean, I know probably why, because it's not necessarily his fault, because every fandom has their fucking bad eggs. But, like, in general, just the idea that he was bringing the world together just with this fucking art style and this anime, like, so much so that he created a fucking riot, damn near riot in Japan, to watch the watch party, or to watch Dragon Ball Super, is fucking insane to me. Like, that's how much influence he had on the world, and I don't think people realize that, you know?
It's almost impossible to overstate what Akira Toriyama's work meant to the worlds of comics, animation, video games, pro wrestling, model kits, hip-hop, Latin American politics, and more. But I'm only barely qualified to talk about those first three things, so that's what this video is going to be about. And believe me, that'll give us more than enough to cover.
And again, that's where we're going to probably stop it. Again, if you want to check out this whole video honoring the legacy and how he changed the world, go and check out Mother's Basement's video. It's a very good watch. It's very informative. It breaks it down better than I ever could have. And that's truth. That's the truth. Like, that's what I wanted to say. He was better than me. The impact that he had in ways that I didn't even realize he had impact, because I knew he had an impact, right? But how big of an impact, I did not realize until I watched this video. So, that's a huge thing for me. The way I got into Dragon Ball was completely unconventional. I got into it because I was a fucking little shit on Newgrounds, right? When I probably shouldn't have been at that age, considering it was the wild, wild west on the internet. Shit was going to go down the way it went down, right? So, I was essentially browsing through Newgrounds, and I was a Mario nut. Like, Super Mario nut. Really loved the franchise. Still do to this day. Like, if I could, I'd play Super Mario Maker. I just don't know how to set up my fucking Nintendo Switch because I'm a stupid. Right? But I'd play that if I could. I'd play Super Mario Odyssey if I could. I still play Sunshine when I can. I literally, like, while I edit the documentary for my uncle, I have, like, a big video file of all of his raw videos that I split into the best parts. And that takes a while to render and load through, right? So I'll play Super Mario Strikers just to pass the time, you know? So I am obviously a Mario obsessive dude, and I'm looking through Newgrounds for fan-made Mario stuff. Like, even then, like, I love fan-made creations, fan-made projects. And lo and behold, I would stumble across a young Mark Haynes. And now, mind you, as I go and discover Alvin Earthworm, the creator of Super Mario Bros. Z, I knew what Dragon Ball was. I knew what Z meant. Just that alone, you know, tells you how much of an impact, because you already knew that it was Dragon Ball even before you ever heard it, right? But you heard people at your school talk about it, so you kind of get the gist of what that's supposed to mean. So I heard of it, but I never really understood Dragon Ball until I saw Super Mario Bros. Z. And by the way, it's a great fucking series. It's one of the best series, Flash animation, going still. And so much so that, you know, when FTW was a thing, and even though FTW isn't a thing, that will continue. We were doing Super Mario Bros. Z voice acting, me and Casey, still going to be doing that. It was phenomenal. Truly fucking phenomenal. I had never seen fight scenes like that before. I've never seen fights choreographed like that. It was the coolest to me, to little stupid old me, autistic ass me, that Mario ever looked. You know? And I was like, I gotta get more of this. Where did this come from? And I would find, like, series that kind of duplicated what Mark did, but they were nothing like how Mark Haynes did it. And it turns out he got the stuff from Dragon Ball, because pretty soon after I saw that, my brother noticed I was inspired by this back when him and I were on good terms. And we would, like, he essentially introduced me to the actual Dragon Ball Z series with Budokai Tenkaichi 2. Which I picked up probably, like, in the matter of minutes and whooped his ass with Birder of all fucking characters, right? And I just fucking decimated him, and I think I played, like, 2 members of the Ginyu Force, and I played, like, I played a lot of Speedy Boys. For some reason, when I play a fighting game, I really like playing the Speedy characters, like, or the technical fighters. That's kind of my style. Like, when I was playing Street Fighter 4 or 5, I would always play as Dudley. When I was playing, you know, but when I'm playing, like, Injustice, I'll pick the Flash. For some reason, I'm really good with the Flash, and I'm really good with Martian Manhunters. It's also kind of technical, but also speedy. So, I would always play the characters that always had the speed ability. So Birder was my guy, right? I would beat his ass with Birder. And yeah, I got into Dragon Ball playing it with my brother. It was like one of the few memories I have that I still cherish to this day. And Tenkaichi 3 we also played. I played DBZ Burst Limit with Mike, and like a few other people. There was a lot of games that I played that I enjoyed from Dragon Ball. And I watched some of the anime. For some reason, what was weird to me is that it wasn't as cool as it was in the games, but that was because of the animation at the time. But watching it now, I have a whole new appreciation for it as I got older. And mind you, I'm not like a savant of the series or anything, but the episodes that I did check out, like the Perfect Cell Gohan series of fights, the fights that Goku had with Frieza and Majin Buu, the fucking awesome series of fights with him and Vegeta. Anytime they would team up or face each other. My favorite one is probably when Majin Vegeta sacrifices himself to save... I don't remember who. I think it might have been Gohan and Piccolo took him to safety or something. May have been Trunks, Baby Trunks. It's a lot. And again, I'm not a savant like I said, but just that image of Vegeta going and sacrificing himself to fight the bad guy, right? To fight Majin Buu. And overcome the M on his head. Like, that, something about that has always stuck with me. And I think, for me, I got into the series at a weird time because GT had started up around that time, and one of my favorite villains to this day, even though it's from GT, is Omega Shenron. That dude just, for some reason, always, like, the character design of it, he looked like a demon, he looked like a great villain. That always stuck with me, still to this day. Like, I would play Omega Shenron. He might have been, like, my one big guy in my 5-man that I would have in Tenkaichi that I'd always play. He's one of my favorite fucking characters there. Yeah, really, it's just one of the best animes of all time because even somebody who's casual when it comes to Dragon Ball enjoys when he plays Dragon Ball, or watches the series, or takes in snippets of the series at a time, even through YouTube videos or something. I always enjoy the visuals, the scenery, everything around it. Everything just felt alive. He set the standard for what anime would become, really, and he was just super influential in that field. And I think it even goes beyond just anime at this point. Like, I mentioned the Flash animation, which is how I even got into anything Dragon Ball related, was because it was via Mario of all fucking things, right? To me, the legacy of Akira Toriyama will always live on because of the people who create in their style. Like, one of the creators I subscribe to that does Dragon Ball related content, Devil Artemis, right? Friend of mine, Nikos, introduced me to them at the time, and I was hooked, right? Like, the comedy was on fire. He made it into his own thing, don't get me wrong. He fucking involved Kermit, for fuck's sake, right? And it's some of the funniest shit that you'll see Dragon Ball Z parody related, right? But when he wants to make some fight scenes, in fact, we're actually going to look up a fight scene, right, that he did specifically. and it's from Death Battle. I don't even know if I can play that. No, I can't play that, really, can I? I wanted to show it, because it's just a snippet of Saitama versus Popeye the Sailor Man. And he fucking did a bang-up job on that. It was like one of the best fucking fan-made Dragon Ball type fight scenes you'll see, right? It was phenomenal. And they were like going through a bunch of different animation styles. Like they went 8-bit at one point. They went fucking 3D. Then they went back to fucking hand-drawn. It was some of the best shit. Anyway, besides the point. But I think that is what's going to carry Akira Toriyama's legacy, is the fan base that also was inspired by his style. You know, and there'll never be another Akira Toriyama, right? But the style of Akira Toriyama and the spirit, I think, of Akira Toriyama is going to live through these creators like Mark Haynes, through Devil Artemis, through Death Battle. You know, they're going to live through them. The creators of the Gohan verse, you know, those guys will carry that style into the future, I think. And I think a lot of people are worried about the future of Dragon Ball. Like, I remember there were people that were afraid of, like, what's going to happen to Dragon Ball now that Akira Toriyama's not running the day-to-day operations because he's passed on. To me, I don't think you have a lot to worry about. There's plenty of people that will carry that mantle, I think. There's plenty of animators that literally just got let go of Rooster Teeth. Unless Death Battle is able to go back to being independent again, or go back with Screw Attack or something. So you could probably get some of those animators, but realistically, like, it's gonna be carried on through those animators. I don't think Akira's dead in that respect. And I think that alone is, you know, that alone, when you do something that impactful and you spread it so far that you create like an influence in other artists or inspiring artists, that alone, I think, is going to set you apart from a lot of others. So I think that in and of itself is going to be the legacy. And the legacy is going to be far from dead. Again, you saw just how people enjoy the series. Like, you saw what happened in Mexico. There was other stuff that went down as well. Like, and just the influence that the series has had on other anime. You know, like Naruto wishes it was as cool as Dragon Ball. You know? I mean, really, I played a lot of the Naruto games too. Like, I remember playing Clash of Ninja 2 for the GameCube when that was around. You know, those are my games back then for some reason when I was a kid. I don't know why, but I really liked Naruto Clash of Ninja 2, and I really liked Tenkaichi 2. So, there you go. But, what's crazy to me is, like, he passes away, like, not too long after Slick Goku, the voice actor for Slick Goku, passes away. And that was a gut punch to the community also, because he was a really awesome dude and did a lot for that community. I remember, like, hearing about it, I was fucking gutted, right? And that's just the craziest thing. Like, the creators outside of Akira are going to have an impact because of the style he left behind in the world. You know? And the fact that he was so welcome to people's creativity, and especially in Japan, where, and especially with Nintendo, in a lot of cases, they're very strict on copyright law. He was one of the guys that was championing these creators to create Dragon Ball in their image, you know, with his style, and not was so refreshing, still is refreshing to this day. That to me is like the legacy he leaves behind, is in the creators that he inspired. So this isn't just like a short podcast. I'm going to talk about some of the characters that really stuck in my heart, and in my memory and in my soul. Like, really kind of stuck with me. I mean, Goku is just me. Like, for real. Kind soul until you piss him off. Sound familiar? So that he was definitely probably, if nothing else, probably like my most relatable guy that I can go to, character-wise. Like, Goku reminds me a lot of me, which is why I always had kind of a appreciation for the Goku character. He has his dumb moments. He's very naive. You could almost say he's autistic, right? So, to me, like, Goku always kind of spoke to me in that regard, so he'll always have a special place in my heart, obviously, the main character. Probably one of the most influential main characters of all time, just besides him having an influence on me. But then there's Vegeta, and man, you know, you could talk about some of the best anti-hero type characters. You could go on with your Shadow the Hedgehogs. You can go on with your Batmans. You could go on. Hell, you could go on with your Red Hoods. Really, you could give me every anti-hero that you want. But for me, Vegeta is the quintessential best anti-hero of all time, and I mean this wholeheartedly. Nobody has the presence, the powerful demeanor, the force in which he goes about his missions like Vegeta. That, to me, is the legacy. And there are people that replicate that to a T, by the way, and it's crazy. But, like, OG Vegeta, when he was feuding with Goku and then later teaming up with Goku, that was a whole different freaking animal. That actually kind of reared its head in Super, when he went Super Saiyan Blue. And I think in the manga, and the only reason I even know this is because I watched the Death Battle where they explain this, but he has a false Super Saiyan 2 that he can go to, which apparently is stronger than Super Saiyan God 2, right? It's fucking crazy, but he's that fucking Vegeta, and it's so sick. He's one of the best, most powerful anti-heroes as well. Like, everything he did have oomph. Like, he's the type of guy who you just love because of his charisma, right? To kind of use some wrestling terms here, that's kind of what he had. It's just he was oozing that. And shout out to who the original voice actor of Vegeta was. And you know what? I'm actually going to pause and look that up so I'm not talking out of my ass here, or just completely neglect it entirely. So, it was originally done by Christopher Sabat, or Sabat, excuse me. Shout out Christopher Sabat, because that voice is so iconic now. Like, when you think of Vegeta, his voice starts kind of going off in your head. Like, tell me, is that look in your face, is that fear? You know, like, shit like that. You know, and I'm doing a fucking butchered version of it, but, like, when Christopher Sabat spoke as Vegeta, you listened. You digested what he said. You digested his character arc and his character progression. Like, that to me is the legacy of the Vegeta character in and of itself. Like, one of my favorite Vegeta moments outside of just the typical anime is like Team 4-Star with Nappa. Like, that shit will always get me. And he's like, always telling Nappa, shut the hell up, Nappa! And he was always fucking pissed off, man. Like, just phenomenal. Just phenomenal voice, phenomenal character. Piccolo is up there too, but like, he was more soft-spoken, very brooding, like, he had more... He was kind of like what Vegeta was. I think when he first fought Goku in Dragon Ball. And then when he beat Piccolo and he turned him into the good guy, right? He kind of remained silent and didn't really talk much. I really like him, though. Like, when it matters, he'll speak and you listen. And Piccolo is one of those guys, too, that absolutely is, like, one of the best characters of all time just because he looks cool, you know? He's a green dude named Piccolo. It's very obvious that why he's named Piccolo, because he looks like a fucking pickle, right? But he's also, like, I don't know, something about him was just so cool. Same with Frieza. I mean, some of the best villains come from Dragon Ball, man. I mean, you had a 3 fucking combo here with Frieza, Perfect Cell, and Majin Buu. Majin Buu, specifically Majin Buu. But you can probably just include the entire Buu family, or Buu metamorphosis, whatever you want to call it. I was always confused by the Buu stuff. I'm not going to lie with you. But Majin Buu was fucking nuts, right? Like, that always stuck out to me. So did fucking Perfect Cell. Perfect Cell, like, to this day, I mean, gets copied. Like, I don't know who originally did the voice for Perfect Cell, but, like, the guy, the way he looks, he shouldn't be talking the way he talks, especially when he's Perfect Cell, right? He sounds so proper. Like, so proper. And it's so old school, like, it's so old school, like, that shit. The best way I could say it is, like, if you went back to the Legion of Doom times, right? Like, that's kind of what it always reminds me of. And that, to me, is, like, probably one of my favorite villains, of course, along with Omega Shenron. To me, it's like a 4-piece. You know, you got Frieza, Perfect Cell, Majin Buu, and Omega Shenron. Always be my favorite designed villains and characters of all time. Love those 4. I don't really have much that I can offer when it comes to Super, but I do really like Jiren's design. I think he's the dude that looks like a legit alien, right? Like, with the big alien eyes and shit. I think that's his name, is Jiren. Jiren? What's his name? I don't want to fucking butcher this. I'm actually just going to keep going, because this is funny. Who is Jiren from Dragon Ball Super? Says who's Jordan, but it's not Jordan. Who is the alien? Who is the alien? Oh wow. Oh, there he is. Okay. Mystery Alien by Dragon Ball Super. They don't even say his name. I swear he had a name. Somebody said his name. What's his name? Anybody want to say his name? Anybody want to say his name? I swear he had a name. I don't know. I swear he had a name, but I think it was Jordan. But I could be wrong. I'll find that out, and you know what? What's the name? Perfect Cell versus Jiren. Okay, so I was right. His name is Jiren. That's how I was able to figure that out, is because Devil Artemis did a fucking skit with him and Jiren. So there you go. I might actually watch that just for shits and giggles at some point, but yeah, I really liked his design as well. So even in the later years, like, I got a wind of some of the designs of some of these villains, and it's like, man, Akira Toriyama, man, he still has it, man. He still has it. Like, the characters pop, you know? Design, they pop. Character arc, they pop, especially if you watch the series more religiously than I do. Even if you're a casual fan, like the big characters like Goku, Vegeta, Gohan was another really good character too. The son of Goku, and his whole character metamorphosis. I always thought he was best, or at least he had more to fight for, and you felt like he had more of an impact as Teen Gohan. But I mean, you gotta have some love for Super Gohan, right? Like superhero Gohan is a fucking goat, but really, like, goated is Teen Gohan and his fights with fucking Perfect Cell, where he was doing Kamehameha waves with one fucking arm. And the way that they were able to tell the stories and weave everything into together is fucking awesome, right? It is some of the best work that you will find in animation. And I'm not just saying anime, I'm saying animation, period. And again, his fight style has been replicated by every genre and media out there. Like, the back and forth, you know, you know, like, going back and forth has been replicated so much because of him. And he really popularized it and really kind of showed how you do it. And to me, like that, he's always going to be the guy that has changed the way fight scenes are done when it comes to like two superhuman level characters, or super alien characters, whatever it is. Like, he changed the style. You know, people will adapt to it, they'll add to it, they'll, you know, sometimes in some cases they'll take away from it and they'll do something entirely different, but they'll stay with the motif still of how those fight scenes go. Like, he influenced an entire way to do animation. And that's not just with the YouTube community, that's with movies, that's with professional wrestling, does a lot of that now. You know, hell, you know what's funny? Even in fights, I feel like that there are people that have done like UFC fights in the style of Dragon Ball, and they'll do the Super Saiyan shit and whatever. Some people will go to Mortal Kombat route with it too. But we just had a fucking fight at UFC 300 where it was just back and forth until the very last second, where it was a knockout victory, right? I think he won the BMF title, which was first won by Jorge Masvidal of all fucking people. So, you know, just everywhere you look, there you can really trace back to what Akira Toriyama popularized. You know, fighting spirit, never giving up, and all that shit. Really, like that to me was Dragon Ball in a nutshell. Having the fighting spirit, pursuing your dreams, fighting for what's right type shit. Just really good anime plot, great story, great characters, great fight scenes. Some of the GOAT, like, honest to God, greatest shit of all time. And it's so hard to put into words to me, like, how he influenced me. Because, again, he influenced me indirectly. Like, I'm more of a savant when it comes to the Super Mario Bros. Z franchise than I am the Dragon Ball franchise, right? But that, without Akira Toriyama, we don't get Alvin Earthworm. And that, to me, speaks volumes. You look at all these characters that have taken that style. You look at all these movie productions that have taken that style and ran with it. And really, it's just become this butterfly effect. And I think animation's definitely been better off for it. Often replicated, never duplicated. And that, to me, is Akira Toriyama's legacy. So, that, I couldn't even say anything more if I tried. I think I got everything that I wanted to say about him. But what does suck to me is that he had so much left to give and he was taken too soon. He was only 68 years old, you know? That's fucking tragic when you hear shit like this. Like, you realize very quickly when you're a mortal man, and there's very few things that make me realize when I'm a mortal man. That was one of those times. Because there's no way that he should have been dead like that. Like, my grandpa, and some people are different. Like, my grandpa, he smoked all the way up until he was 80, and he somehow lived to 93, right? Even with having to deal with COVID, like, a few years ago. Like, and to just see how he died and why he died. And what was crazy is it was very similar to Bray Wyatt. He didn't even realize he was having problems. You know? And he passed away just kind of peacefully. Didn't even know. But obviously it is the most devastating, I think, for his family. And I'm sure he was, you know, as much as we want to say he influenced all of us as creators, man, he must have been beloved by his family, you know? Like, and that to me is like the hardest pill to swallow, especially like as time goes on. It's like life is way too short for, you know, fucking petty squabbles. And I say that because it's like, you know, you listen to Akira Toriyama and the influence he had, like, he was bringing or trying to do things to just encourage people to, you know, pursue their dreams and, you know, do something that would change the world. And he did it, you know. And he has kind of passed that off and done this butterfly effect to all these other people, and I hope that his family understands how influential he was to not only the space he cultivated in anime, but the space of this entire rock we call Earth. I mean that. Like, he's a national treasure. He's a worldwide treasure at this point. Like, if he's got, you know, diplomatic stuff going on in China, and he had, like, an incident happen in Mexico where Mexico had to contact him and all this shit, right? I'm sure Japan as well. Akira Toriyama is the GOAT. Undisputable. He is the GOAT of animation. He is the GOAT of life. Really. Like, he lived out his dream, and he kept creating all the way until his last day on this planet. I bet you we're going to be seeing a lot more projects he had in the works come out as well, and, like, I'm here for it, man. I'm really here for it. I might actually play the game that, you know, Mother's Basement kind of showed. I'm interested now in Akira Toriyama now more than I was before, and I always was interested in the Dragon Ball stuff, but, you know, knowing how much of an impact he had, you know, really spoke to me, and that's why I wanted to do this podcast for so long, and, you know, it kept getting delayed by bullshit, but I'm glad I was able to do it now, and obviously I want to extend my condolences to the Toriyama family and friends for what is definitely a loss, you know, and not only in their family, but to many people that ever looked up to him. It's just so crazy he died at 68. Like, that still blows my mind. But with that said, I'm going to do it one more time. You know, we're not going to be doing plugs because I think doing anything to promote anything is just very tasteless. You'll notice in the description there really isn't much going on there. I think in this case, we'll just give tribute to him one last time. So, with that said, one more time, rest in peace, Akira Toriyama. Real quick before we end this podcast, whoever can find out the original artist who made this picture, please do let me know in the comments. I would definitely like to credit them properly. I tried to look, couldn't find it. But I thought that this image was very apropos, and I thought that there was no better image to kind of sign off with and to begin this podcast with than this. So, rest in peace, Akira Toriyama. You will be sorely, sorely missed.